Everyone was so mad when WWE went PG, and I get it. While not everything from the Attitude Era was kosher, the edginess of it appealed to angry teens that wanted to get all of that aggression out. So when the decision was made to go in the other direction and try and win everyone over, there was always going to be some sadness. Just because you say you're going by these rules though, doesn't mean you have to stick to them. Even when WWE were operating on the line, they'd still find a way to step over it, and that is saying something. Some were planned, others just happened, but they caused ripples through the community because you expect one thing and then you get another. Maybe that's what makes wrestling so much fun to begin with. I'm Simon from What Culture. This is 10 times WWE's PG era went too far. Number 10, LAVAR Ball doesn't hold back. LAVAR Ball's family is amazing. He seemed to be intent on just having a bunch of kids who would be brilliant basketball stars, and that's what he did. He even branded them big ballers and said he himself was better than Michael Jordan. I mean, that's just nuts, but I appreciate the moxie. As that comment blew up, WWE thought they'd invite his family onto Raw, and it was one of the strangest things you could have imagined. It was like nobody knew what was going on, but we were live, so screw it, let's just do whatever we want. Happening during a Miz TV segment, LaMelo, one of LAVAR's children, told his dad he should drop the Miz right there and right then, and finished it off by also dropping the N-word into the mix. You could hear the fear in the commentators' voices as this made waves for days afterwards for obvious reasons, and unsurprisingly, the Bulls have never been invited back. Number 9, WWE gets UCEY. The last few years have not been great for WWE's ratings. The powers that be had promised to listen to their audience, and they did to a certain extent in the sense that a lot of people kept shouting, "Attitude Era!" So they turned back the clock. For some reason though, every time you say that, there's a contingent who think that means we have to try and win over horny teenagers, which is why in early 2019, Mandy Rose beckoned Jimmy Uso back to her hotel room and was dressed in what can only be described as eye-catching lingerie. The idea was to seduce the former tag team champ just because Mandy really hated his wife. A perfectly normal thing to do. It was a trick as it turned out because Naomi was waiting in the wings, but it still ended with Rose kicking the crap out of her while wearing this sexy attire. Nothing about this was PG, from potential adultery to the clear push to sell sex, but hey ho, what are you gonna do? Number 8, an international incident. Things were tough in November 2018 for WWE. Their controversial Saudi Arabia deal was problematic enough. But when journalist Jamal Khashoggi was murdered under suspicious circumstances, it just made the whole affair something you wanted to move away from. Whereas many companies cancelled engagements around the time, Vince McMahon decided to carry on regardless, which rightfully appalled a lot of the fan base. This was way too much when you just wanted to enjoy some wrestling, and seeing the mention of Saudi Arabia banned on TV during the build-up to Crown Jewel made it even more farcical. The real kick to the shin though came during an episode of Raw where Stephanie McMahon was yelling at Braun Strowman. Whether it was a slip of the tongue or a truly horrendous pun, Stephanie told Braun that dismemberment is kind of a corporate liability after he threatened Baron Corbin. You do not say things like that when current events are making worldwide news, and while it may have been lost on the wider audience, it was anything but PG. Number 7, Ric Flair kisses Becky Lynch. When WWE finally had their women's revolution in 2015, it was long overdue. Females in the company for too long had been treated like eye candy, and it was ridiculous. Just let them wrestle. It meant by 2016 this was in full flow and things were far better for it, and one of the feuds that stood out early on was of course Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. I know, you hate it now, but I've just gone back in time, damn it. During a pretty decent match between them, however, Ric Flair, who was at ringside supporting his daughter, thought it would be a great idea to kiss Lynch without her knowing and without her consent. That is just a huge no. Aside from sending the wrong message to those watching, it was really creepy, especially because these days Flair is an elderly gentleman. I mean, it would have been banned even if he wasn't, but seeing this used as a distraction tactic was so lowbrow and was met with a negative reaction online because of it. All parties talked it out afterwards, but the answer is simpler than that. Just don't do it. Easy. Number 6, saying the word shit. WWE really likes to say the word shit on TV nowadays. It kinda started in the build-up to WrestleMania 36, where the USA Network decided it was fine for wrestlers to call someone a piece of shit, or just say they felt like shit. South Park, eat your heart out. Aside from not being PG at all for obvious reasons, the key now is for WWE to only let one drop when it works. Drew McIntyre used it wonderfully on a recent Raw, but you can even go back to 2012 when CM Punk was feuding with Chris Jericho to hear one go the other way. It felt like Punk needed to get a reaction, so he just told Y2J he was bullshit. But look, we also had Shayna Baszler promise to beat the shit out of Becky Lynch, which was the most Paul Heyman thing ever, and if we use a less is more approach, amazingly less will be more. For those hoping to hear the F or C words though, go and wash your mouth out with soap. Number 5, Vince McMahon ruins that last sentence. Unless of course you're Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Then you can say what you want, it makes sense, it's his company, who's gonna say no? Linda? She doesn't care. Knee deep in a feud with son Shane, who once again wanted control of the company, Vince got right in his face and said, "Don't F with me. I am not joking," and he said the full word. This was dumped from the TV broadcast because you're not getting away with that, but those live saw it and were keen to share this moment online. I don't even think McMahon knew what he said as he barely flinched, and the real shame with this is that here we are in 2020 and we still don't know what was in the darn lockbox. Maybe it would have been more instances of Vince's potty mouth, because there have been a few. I really don't think he gives two hoots. Number 4, too much reality. Sometimes WWE just needs to leave well alone. If we go back to the 2015 Survivor Series, Paige and Charlotte were engaged in a war of words. It was happening in the main event segment of Raw, which was a big deal, so clearly somebody thought we had to push the envelope as much as we could. In an attempt to get inside her opponent's head, Paige ran down Charlotte and finished it off by saying that her little brother didn't have much fight in him, and nor did she. This would have been fairly innocent if you didn't know the context, but when you do, it is horrible. Reed Flair had died of an overdose 2 years prior, and I don't think anybody needed that in a controlled storyline. There was also rumours that nobody had given Rick or Reed's mother a heads up either, and that is just a poor decision all around. Nothing is more important than life and death. Don't toy with it when you don't have to. Number 3, Brock Lesnar opens up Randy Orton. This is still bonkers after all these years, and I can't believe WWE was cool with it. In short, the finish for the Lesnar-Orton matchup at SummerSlam 2016 was going to be the Beast smashing Randy so bad, he would be left in a pool of his own blood. Who said wrestling was fake? Rather than use a blade that had been done for years, however, everyone decided they could just let Brock open up Orton for real using his elbows. It was horrible to watch. This was also happening when concussions were slowly revealing themselves as a true risk too, and yet here was a trained MMA fighter shoving his arm into the Viper's skull because somebody thought blood would look good at the end of a pay-per-view. Surprise, surprise, Orton did suffer a concussion, and Lesnar only stopped after Shane McMahon got in his face. I don't know about you, but I watch wrestling to escape real life, and this was the opposite of that. And just use a blood capsule for goodness sake. Everybody thinks that's what wrestlers do anyway, and you'll never convince them otherwise. You may as well protect everybody involved. Number 2, Paige licks Natalya. The Total Diva storyline in 2015 was simple. Because Paige didn't look like the other women on WWE's roster, she should act differently to them as well. She was wild and out of control, and therefore must be stopped by Natalya. I think because she looked more like what you'd expect, it was utterly redonkulous. What it did lead to was this idea that because of all of the above, Paige should also get sexual on WWE programming, so when the two faced off, she suggestively licked Natty's face. That may sound fairly innocuous, but it was anything but. Everybody knew what they were doing. It worked because within seconds, thousands of young men were losing their minds, but you would never see this on any other PG show. Don't know how WWE gets away with it, really. It's also strange because when Mickie James and Trish Stratus had done something similar years earlier, Vince McMahon reportedly lost his mind. That was a lot worse though, to be fair. Number 1, Lacey Evans, up close and personal. I'm just gonna let the picture do the talking here. I mean, what else could I really say about it? It kind of sums up what PG means in the world of WWE, and that's that it's not really PG at all. Everything with Lana, Bobby Lashley and Rusev doesn't really fit that category. After we had already transitioned across, Brie Bella threw her tongue down AJ Lee's throat, and Eva Marie was always getting into spots of bother. And I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying that while we may have all been mad that WWE toned it down, it's not like it became a Tom and Jerry cartoon now, is it? Well, that's not really PG either. Some of the things Tom tries to do to Jerry, what an asshole.
Next up, we are straight back to Shattered Picard for another scene in which it's incredibly important to me that nothing bad ever happens to Laris and
YouTube. The unexpected frontier. These are the videos of whatculture.com. Its continuing mission to list strange new facts, seek out news and offbeat discoveries, to boldly go where no What Culture channel has gone before. Hey, how would you guys like to start a Star Trek channel?
Hell yeah!
No, sorry, how's he got a uniform? I've been asking for one for months now, and
Friday money, I'll be sipping jippers on the beach somewhere.
Hell yeah!
Is he even cold?
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be sipping
Literally
jippers on the
months
beach
I've been
somewhere.
asking for one.
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be sipping jippers on the beach somewhere.
Hell
If I
yeah!
had any money, I'd be sipping jippers on the beach somewhere.
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be sipping jippers on the beach somewhere.
Hell yeah!
If I had any money, I'd be sipping...
Hi, I'm Marcus Bronzy, new presenter for Trek Culture, What Culture's new home for all things Star Trek related. Now, we've already got a bunch of great content like Adam Cleary's ups and downs for every new episode of Picard, and we'll of course have all of the lists and rankings that you know and love us for. Fancy yourself a Trekkie and want to contribute? Well, What Culture is hiring video editors and writers, so if you want to get involved, fire over a CV and cover letter to trekculture@whatculture.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to slap subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter. It would be a great dishonour if you didn't. I've been Captain Marcus Bronzy. Until next time, Kapla!